Imagine a world where life and death blur, where the boundaries between the two are shattered in the most inexplicable way. What if you were declared clinically dead, only to return hours later with a story so extraordinary it left everyone who heard it in complete disbelief? This is the unbelievable story of Velma Thomas, whose 17-hour death was followed by a revelation that defied all logic and science. What happened during the hours she was gone? What secret did she bring back from the other side? Prepare to be captivated by a tale of hope, mystery, and a life that transcends the ordinary. Velma Thomas was a devoted mother, a pillar of her community, and a woman whose faith and strength had carried her through life's toughest trials. But one fateful October day in 2008, everything changed. What began as a typical, ordinary day quickly escalated into a terrifying medical emergency, setting the stage for an experience that would challenge everything we think we know about life, death, and what lies beyond. At the hospital, Velma's condition was dire. She was suffering from a massive heart attack, with her heart struggling to pump blood. Doctors and nurses worked tirelessly, using defibrillators, chest compressions, and medications to stabilize her. Despite their best efforts, her body remained unresponsive. Then, at one point, her heart stopped completely. The room was filled with the frantic beeping of machines and the determined voices of medical staff, all fighting to save her. Yet, despite their tireless efforts, Velma's heart continued to falter, and her condition grew worse by the minute. After hours of trying to revive her, doctors were left with no hope. They delivered the devastating news. Velma's heart had stopped for too long, and her brain had been deprived of oxygen for an extended period. Even if her heart could be restarted, the damage to her brain would likely be irreversible. The medical team conducted tests, but there were no signs of brain activity. After exhausting all options, they made the painful decision to declare Velma clinically dead. Her family was devastated. Velma's son, Tim, who had always been incredibly close to his mother, was particularly distraught. The thought of losing his mother, his confidant and guide, was unfathomable. He stayed by her side, hoping for some miracle, even as her body lay motionless. Her family gathered around her, praying and mourning the loss of someone who had meant so much to them. The grief in the room was overwhelming as they came to terms with the loss. As the hours passed, Velma's body remained in the hospital, awaiting the next steps. Yet, unbeknownst to anyone, something extraordinary was about to unfold. What seemed like a tragic end to her life was actually the beginning of a miraculous journey that would leave everyone in awe. The events of that day would forever change the lives of Velma's family and spark conversations about the mysteries of life, death, and the spirit. Velma's absence left a void that was unbearable for her family. She was not just a mother, grandmother, and friend, but the glue that held everyone together. Her son, Tim, was overcome with grief, unable to understand why his mother had been taken from him so suddenly. But in his heart, he refused to let go, clinging to a faint hope that somehow this was not the end. As hours stretched on and the family began to prepare for her funeral, a sense of quiet sorrow settled over the hospital room. The machines that had once fought to keep her alive were now silent, disconnected from her body. Velma's family, though deeply mourning, found comfort in their memories of her, a loving woman whose warmth and faith had touched everyone around her. Her kindness, wisdom, and resilience were the foundation of her family's life. But for Tim, the pain was unbearable. Then, in the quiet stillness of the room, something miraculous happened. At first, it was a small, almost imperceptible movement, a faint twitch in Velma's hand. Tim, exhausted and overwhelmed with grief, initially dismissed it, thinking it was simply a post-mortem reflex. But then it happened again, more distinctly. His heart skipped a beat as he leaned closer, whispering her name. "Mom?" he called, but there was no response. Velma's body remained still, yet something in the air changed. Moments later, a nurse entered the room to finalize the arrangements for Velma's body. As she approached the bed, something caught her eye, a faint pulse on the monitor. The nurse froze in disbelief, unsure of what she was seeing. She checked the equipment, but the pulse was unmistakable. A tiny, irregular heartbeat was there. It was weak, but it was real. In shock, she called for assistance, and doctors and nurses rushed into the room. What followed was beyond anything anyone could have expected. Velma, who had been declared clinically dead for 17 hours, was alive. Against all odds, her heart had started beating again, and she had returned to the world of the living. Her family, once engulfed in grief, were now stunned and overwhelmed by the miracle unfolding before them. What had seemed like an irreversible loss was now a breathtaking new beginning, a second chance for Velma, and a testament to the mysterious power of life, death, and the human spirit. Velma Thomas's miraculous return to life after being clinically dead for 17 hours is a story that defies every law of medicine and leaves anyone who hears it in awe. What happened in those hours between life and death remains a mystery that puzzles both medical professionals and her family. Her recovery was so extraordinary that it could only be described as a miracle, something that science could not explain or predict. The journey began when Velma suffered a massive heart attack, and despite the doctor's tireless efforts to revive her, her condition worsened. After hours of trying to stabilize her, the medical team was forced to declare her clinically dead. Her body showed no signs of life. Her pulse had stopped, and her brain had been deprived of oxygen for an extended period. The doctors were certain that her brain function would be permanently damaged, and the family was left in profound grief, preparing to say goodbye to their beloved mother, grandmother, and friend. But could there be more to this story than meets the eye? What if the boundary between life and death isn't as clear-cut as we think? As the hours passed, something unimaginable happened. While the family sat by her side, mourning her loss, Tim, her son, refused to leave her bedside. He sat in a quiet vigil, praying for a miracle, even though deep inside he feared that it was too late. Just as the finality of death settled into the room, something miraculous began to unfold. It started with a small, almost imperceptible twitch of Velma's hand. Tim, who had been watching her in silence, barely believed his eyes. He thought it was a trick of his exhausted mind, or perhaps a post-mortem reflex, but then it happened again, more distinctly this time. Tim's heart skipped a beat. He leaned closer, his voice trembling as he whispered, "Mom, can you hear me?" Her hand moved slightly in response. Tim stood frozen in disbelief, wondering if this was truly happening. Could this be the sign of a miracle? Or is there a scientific explanation for what's happening? A nurse entered the room at that exact moment to prepare Velma's body for transportation to the morgue. As she approached the bed, she noticed something astonishing. The monitor that had been showing no signs of life suddenly displayed a faint pulse. The nurse, initially thinking it was a malfunction, checked the equipment again. But there it was, a tiny, irregular sign of life. She called out to the other medical staff, and within seconds, doctors and nurses rushed to Velma's bedside. Time seemed to freeze. Doctors scrambled to assess the situation, administering oxygen and checking her vitals. Despite their disbelief, they began to work on Velma with renewed urgency. Her body, which had been cold and lifeless, now began to show faint signs of warmth. Her chest, which had not moved for hours, began to rise and fall with shallow breaths. It was as if life itself had returned to her, slowly but surely. What could possibly explain such a miraculous recovery? Could it be more than a coincidence that her body began responding, just as the doctors were preparing to give up? The family, who had been devastated by grief, now found themselves on the edge of a new emotion: hope. Tim, still holding his mother's hand, could hardly believe his eyes. "Mom, can you hear me?" he asked again, his voice full of longing. Velma's eyes remained closed for what seemed like an eternity, but then, gradually, her eyelids fluttered. She took a deep breath, and with great effort, her eyes opened. Tim could hardly contain his emotions as he saw his mother looking at him, her face weak but alive. Tears of relief filled the room, but something still didn't feel quite right. The medical staff began testing Velma's cognitive function. They asked her basic questions: her name, the year, and her location. And to everyone's astonishment, Velma answered them all correctly. Her mind was clear, and there was no sign of the brain damage that they had feared. For all intents and purposes, Velma had simply awakened from a deep, prolonged sleep. But could there be a deeper, unexplainable reason for her sudden recovery? There was something different about her. The doctors and family members noticed an almost serene quality about Velma. Her demeanor was calm, and there was an unmistakable sense of peace radiating from her. It was as if she had experienced something profound during her time away from her body, something that transcended the physical world. As Velma's medical team continued to monitor her recovery, something extraordinary happened. Once the doctors confirmed that her condition had stabilized and her vitals were improving, she finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it carried a weight that demanded attention. "I wasn't here," she said softly. "I left my body." Her words stunned the family, and Tim leaned in closer, his heart racing. "What do you mean, Mom? Where were you?" he asked, his voice trembling. Velma took a deep breath, her expression thoughtful as she carefully chose her words. "I was gone," she said simply. "I could see everything, the doctors, the machines, you all praying by my side, but I wasn't in pain. I wasn't afraid. I was free." What did Velma experience during those hours when she was clinically dead? Was it simply the last echoes of the mind? Or was she truly somewhere else, in a realm beyond this world? The family's journey had only just begun, and the questions that Velma's miraculous recovery raised would haunt them for a long time. For a moment, there was silence in the room as her family struggled to process her words. Then Velma spoke again, this time sharing something that would forever change their understanding of life and death. She described a brilliant light, one that was warm and welcoming. It wasn't blinding, she said, but instead, it enveloped her in a profound sense of love and peace. It was overwhelming, Velma continued, her voice trembling with emotion. But it was the best feeling I've ever had. She spoke of seeing the spirits of loved ones who had passed before her. They didn't speak to her, but their presence was undeniable. They were waiting for me, Velma said, her voice filled with a quiet reverence. I could feel their love and encouragement, as if they were telling me, "It's not your time yet." Her words brought tears to the eyes of her family, who had been struggling to comprehend the depth of her experience. But perhaps the most profound revelation came next. Velma spoke about a sense of purpose, a message she felt compelled to share with those still living. "I was told no," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I needed to come back. There is so much more for us to understand about love, forgiveness, and faith. We take so much for granted here, but it's all connected. Life, death, it's all part of something much bigger than we can imagine." Her words left everyone speechless. Could it be that she had uncovered something about life and death that had eluded mankind for centuries? Even the medical professionals, who had seen countless cases of life and death, were left in awe. They had witnessed something that no science or medical training could explain. Velma's miraculous recovery and the message she brought back with her were a testament to the mysteries of existence, the power of the human spirit, and the profound interconnectedness of life and death. Was Velma simply lucky? Or was there something far greater at work here? The story of Velma Thomas's miraculous return was not just a story of medical defiance, but a powerful reminder of the mysteries that lie beyond the physical world. Mysteries that, for now, remain beyond our understanding. Velma Thomas's extraordinary return to life, after being clinically dead for 17 hours, stunned everyone who witnessed it, from the medical staff to her own family. Doctors and nurses, who had seen their fair share of cardiac arrests and near-death experiences, were left speechless. What could they have missed? Was there more to the human spirit than they'd ever imagined? One nurse, visibly shaken, whispered, "I've heard stories of near-death experiences, but nothing like this. It's incredible." Tim, still holding his mother's hand, was overwhelmed with both awe and an urgent need for answers. "Mom, what does it mean? Why did you come back?" he asked, his voice trembling. With a serene and unshakable calmness, Velma looked up at him, her eyes filled with a quiet but determined purpose. "I came back because there's more to do," she said softly. "More to share. I don't have all the answers, but I know this. Love is what matters. It's what connects us, what carries us forward. Everything else, fear, anger, regret, it doesn't matter in the end." Her words hung in the air, leaving an indelible mark on everyone in the room. Could it really be that simple? Could love truly be the key to everything? Family members who had once been consumed by grief were now struck by profound questions about life, death, and the nature of the afterlife. Was this the message they were meant to hear? Or was there more to Velma's journey than they realized? Velma's message wasn't just a comfort, it was a wake-up call, urging them to focus on what truly mattered in life. As the story of Velma's miraculous recovery spread, her hospital room became a gathering place for people from all walks of life. Those grieving the loss of loved ones, those simply curious about her experience, and those seeking inspiration in a world that sometimes seemed devoid of hope. Velma greeted each visitor with the same calm assurance, sharing her message of love, hope, and faith. Could her story be the key to healing for others? Or was it simply a rare occurrence that defied explanation? Her words offered comfort to the mourning, inspiration to the lost, and a renewed sense of wonder to those who had once been skeptical of the unknown. Even the medical community, stunned by her survival, became fascinated by the mystery of her recovery. Several doctors and researchers visited her, eager to explore whether her vivid recollections of the afterlife were a near-death experience, a product of the brain's final moments, or something entirely beyond the scope of science. Despite the many unanswered questions, one thing was clear. Velma's story was one of hope, resilience, and the unexplainable mysteries that lay beyond the veil of life as we know it. Could this be proof that there is more to our existence than we realize? For Velma, her miraculous return wasn't just about having a second chance at life. It felt like a divine mission. She believed she had been sent back for a reason, to share the message she had been entrusted with. "I don't know why I was chosen," she often said, "but I know life is a gift, and we have to use it wisely." Her family, once overwhelmed by sorrow, now found themselves filled with gratitude and purpose. Velma's return was nothing short of a miracle, and her message became a beacon of light in a world often overshadowed by darkness. Could this new perspective shift the way her family saw their lives? As her health continued to improve, her commitment to her mission only grew stronger. "I feel like I've been given a new lease on life," she said with conviction. "I'm not going to waste a single second of it." As Velma regained her strength, she began reflecting on her journey and the purpose she now felt so strongly. What had she learned about the true nature of life and death that others hadn't? She had always been a woman of faith, but her near-death experience had deepened her spiritual understanding in ways she couldn't fully express. A profound sense of purpose settled over her. "I was sent back for a reason," she repeated often. "There's a message I need to share, and I won't rest until I've done what I was meant to do." Her first priority was reconnecting with her family. The ordeal had brought them closer than ever before, strengthening the bonds of love and reminding them to cherish every precious moment together. "Life is so fragile," Velma told her son Tim and her grandchildren. "Don't let a single day go by without telling the people you love how much they mean to you." But Velma's mission didn't end with her family. She felt a deep responsibility to spread her story far and wide, believing it could bring healing and hope to others. Once she was well enough, she began speaking at local churches, community centers, and support groups. What could her message mean to those who had lost everything? Her message was simple, yet profoundly powerful. Love is the most important force in the universe, and forgiveness and faith are the keys to a meaningful life. People traveled from near and far to hear her speak, some seeking comfort after losing loved ones, others simply curious about her miraculous return. No matter the reason for their visit, Velma welcomed each person with open arms, listening to their stories, offering encouragement, and sharing the wisdom she had gained from her experience. In addition to her public speaking, Velma became involved with researchers studying near-death experiences. She participated in interviews, brain scans, and psychological evaluations, eager to contribute to a deeper understanding of her miraculous recovery. Could her experience be the key to understanding consciousness and the human soul? Some researchers approached her case with skepticism, but many were deeply moved by the clarity of her recollections and the vividness of her experience. There's so much we don't understand about consciousness and the human soul, one researcher remarked. Velma's case challenges everything we think we know about life and death. What will we discover when we delve deeper into the mysteries of life, death, and consciousness? Velma also began volunteering at local hospitals, visiting patients who were facing terminal illnesses or recovering from traumatic events. Her calming presence offered comfort to those in pain, and her words instilled hope in those who felt lost or afraid. It's like she's been to the other side and come back with a piece of that peace. One patient said, "Everything will be okay." As Velma's story spread, she was invited to appear on television, podcasts, and documentaries, sharing her experience with millions. Despite her growing fame, she remained humble, always attributing her survival to a higher power. "This isn't about me," she often said. "It's about the message. I'm just the messenger." Her family, once paralyzed by grief, now found themselves inspired by her unwavering sense of purpose. Tim, who had always been close to his mother, became her most devoted supporter. He traveled with her to speaking engagements and helped organize events, fully embracing the mission she had set before her. "She's taught me to see life in a completely new way," he said. "Every moment is a gift, and I'm not going to waste it." As the years passed, Velma's story continued to ripple through communities, inspiring countless people to re-examine their own lives. People who had been estranged from their families found the courage to reconcile. Those struggling with grief found solace, and individuals who had lost faith rediscovered their spirituality. Her message of love, forgiveness, and faith transcended all boundaries, offering hope to people from every walk of life. Despite her busy schedule, Velma always made time for quiet moments of reflection, often retreating to a peaceful spot by a nearby lake, where she would sit in solitude, watching the water and praying. These moments of stillness were a reminder of the peace she had felt during her near-death experience, a peace she carried with her every day. "I don't have all the answers," she said, "but I know this: we're here for a reason, and if we live with love and kindness, we're fulfilling that purpose." As the years went by, Velma's impact only grew. She wrote a best-selling book about her experience, which was translated into multiple languages, reaching people across the globe. Yet for Velma, the true reward was seeing the tangible impact her story had on the lives of others. "If my story can help even one person find peace," she said, "then it's all been worth it." Velma Thomas's life was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of faith, and the transformative nature of love. Her miraculous return to life was not just a medical anomaly, but a reminder of the profound interconnectedness of all things, a message that continues to inspire and transform lives to this day. If you find this story inspiring, please share it with us in the comments below. Thank you for your listening.